Kai Asakura I'm going to do a full preview of UFC 310 later this week, but Kai Asakura coming in with a 21-4 record, and I don't know what to make of this Kai Asakura fight with Pantoja. I go back and forth. Initially, I was like, this is going to be a dope fight, and Asakura is going to put on a hell of a show with Pantoja here. And then I started really thinking, and, you know, it's a little bit of a cliche. It's a little bit of an overused comparison or a saying or whatever, but the UFC really is the premier talent in mixed martial arts. There are other leagues, certainly. Bellator hasn't been around for a while. Wonder what's going on with that. ONE FC has kind of veered more towards like the freak show grappling, and definitely the Muay Thai, the 4-ounce Muay Thai. And not to say they don't have excellent MMA fighters over there, because they certainly do. I mean, fucking plenty of guys have gone over there and had a great career. And then I think we've even gotten some guys, you know, I mean, Demetrius Johnson is over there putting on fucking barn burners, or, you know, he was before he kind of, I think, retired from the sport and dedicated his time to jiu-jitsu. All that to say, it doesn't mean they have bad fighters, but the question I usually pose is, are their best fighters really fighting consistently the best talent in the world? You know, when Eddie Alvarez came over from Bellator, he was widely known, and Michael Chandler too, right? These are actually two great examples. When Eddie Alvarez and Michael Chandler, you know, respectively at different times came over from Bellator, they had a lot of hype behind them, and they were known by the MMA, like, the real fans of MMA, ones who maybe they've been around the sport for a long time, or maybe they just know, they get deep into the sport and they're looking at other promotions, or maybe they hear about these guys' names and they go watch a couple fights. Go watch Eddie Alvarez and Michael Chandler's fights. Okay, those are exciting fights. Those are historically classic MMA fights in general, not just outside the UFC. And those guys were murderers in their prime. Granted, in a time where the PED test was a multiple choice, and they gave you the answers beforehand. But Eddie Alvarez was fighting the best in the world for a long time that were not in the UFC. He had great fights, mind you. And then when he came over, they gave him Donald Cerrone. And Donald Cerrone, Eddie Alvarez put up a good fight, but Donald Cerrone beat that ass for 3 rounds and won. Michael Chandler's a little bit different. Michael Chandler fought Dan Hooker and finished him in the first round. But it was widely known when Michael Chandler came over that he was an excellent wrestler. The guy can crack. He has heavy hands. Tight boxing, right? Training with Henry Hooft. And, you know, at Hard Knocks 365 here in Florida. And was not afraid of the danger, like was not afraid to get into those brawls. And Michael Chandler came in there, and that dude put on a great fight. Granted, now I think he's 4-2 in the UFC, or maybe even 5-2. But Michael Chandler is certainly up there. He is certainly top 15 material. I believe still top 10 for the time being. But what am I saying all this for, right? I'm saying all this because Kai Asakura is coming in and fighting the guy. Right? They're not giving him Brandon Royval. They're not giving him Brandon Moreno, who are both fucking killers in their own right? But they're giving him the champion. And Pantoja has beaten both of the aforementioned contenders in Royval and Moreno. And I just wonder if Asakura is getting too much off the bat. Now, they don't have much going on with flyweight in the way that a lot of those guys have already fought each other. Pantoja has beaten a lot of the top contenders, and they might need some fresh blood. Right? And Kai Asakura has excellent finishes. I mean, the guy is fucking... Let's look at this here. The guy has... I mean, 16 of his 26 wins, or 16 of his 25 wins have come from... No, 26 wins. Yeah, no, 25 wins. What am I doing? 16 of his 25 wins, I'm having a stroke right here on camera. 16 of his 25 wins have come from finish. I mean, that's insane. And it's like, okay, who is he fighting? Well, let's take a look, because I was not familiar with Asakura. And his most recent fight is with Juan Archuleta. Juan Archuleta and excellent fighter. One of those guys outside the UFC who does have great skills. And he beat him in round 2 with a knee to the body. Yuki Motoya, I am not familiar with, but another knee to the body finish in round 3 that time. And, you know, both of those guys, you see 29-4 for Archuleta, 33-10 for Motoya. Like, those are experienced guys. You know, he's fighting guys who are not just feeders, and they at least have winning records. And I just wonder, you know, the other name that really shot out to me here was Kyoji Horiguchi. Now, granted, he fought Horiguchi twice, and he lost most recently in round 1. But he also beat Horiguchi in round 1. In fact, I'd love to see them bring Horiguchi back and make the rubber match between Asakura and Horiguchi. You know, if he loses this title fight against Pantoja, or even if he wins, fuck it, bring Horiguchi back. Horiguchi is so fucking good. You could bring him back and give him a title fight right off the bat. The dude's insanely good, and you know, I know Anthony Pettis beat him, that wild fucking, I think, spinning back fist. But Horiguchi is one of the best fighters, one of the most complete fighters out there. You know, I know he's a little bit older, he's a little bit more experienced now, maybe a little bit long in the tooth. But I mean, you listen to Jack Slack on some of those old podcasts where he's talking about Kyoji Horiguchi. Kyoji was no joke. Definitely brought in that karate blitz and made good use of it. And you know, Demetrius Johnson beat him. Who the fuck hasn't Demetrius Johnson beaten? Dominic Cruz. And excuse me. That Horiguchi win is not nothing. I know he most recently lost to him, but I'm just trying to say that Asakura is not untested, right? Rainier de Ridder, I mean, that dude was not quite untested either, certainly at 18-2, but the comparison here being, you go to fucking Rainier de Ridder's, I don't know who any of these guys are. I don't know. I mean, aside from Tai Ruotolo, who he lost to in a grappling match, but like, I don't know who any of those guys are. And I'm not saying that to belittle de Ridder here, but Asakura is a finisher. Asakura is a young talent. He has beaten good guys in Juan Archuleta and Kyoji Horiguchi, and it does serve as a huge question mark. I wonder if Asakura can dethrone Pantoja. Now, let's look at Pantoja here. Who were his last fights, right? 28-5. Also, Pantoja with one of the most gut-wrenching post-fight interviews where he's like, "Are you proud, Dad? My dad left when I was a kid. Are you proud of me now?" Like, that shit fucking almost brought a tear to my eye. Steve Erceg, great fighter. At flyweight, dude can crack. Brandon Royval, Brandon Moreno, Alex Perez. Those are good fighters, right? Manel Cape, also a great fighter. I mean, you know, decent fighter. Matt Schnell, Wilson Hayes. Wilson Hayes is kind of where you start dropping off here. But, I mean, Pantoja's beaten Moreno and Royval twice. He's beaten Perez. He's beaten Steve Erceg. It makes sense why they're giving him this Asakura fight. I'm glad to see that they're bringing in more Japanese MMA. I'm glad to see they're bringing in a guy like Kai Asakura. And, you know, Kai Asakura is an exciting fight. And if you don't know, well, my friends, let's give you a little something to know going forward. Kai Asakura over here. Boom. Kaposa, Grobaka Hitman on X. Excellent account. You got to follow Grobaka Hitman. One of Kai Asakura's most devastating finishes wasn't even a KO. It's what he did to Oka Sasaki's jaw. Fractured homeboy's jaw here with two huge hooks, by the way. It's not like that first punch was like a light jab or a little slap hook and he just winds up this kill. Like, Kai Asakura fucking put this dude out. And you see here, destroyed Olko's jaw. Who was Olko? You know, I mean, fuck it. Let's take a look here, if we may. Olko Sasaki, 24-10. Hello. Okay, I mean, beat Manel Cape. Beat Scoggins. Scoggins had great footwork, man. Whatever happened to Scoggins? Lost to Juicy Formiga, lost to Pantoja. I mean, you lose to the best, like no one's gonna fucking hate you for that. But he's lost to a lot of the best guys, and you gotta think, like, was Kai Asakura really fighting? Was Kai Asakura really fighting the best of the best when he fought Oka? No, probably not. But that most recent win, rather, being a finish of Juan Archuleta, that is not nothing. I'll tell you what, dude, that is not nothing. It's a crazy fight. I probably won't have a prediction, at least till later, or maybe even the week leading up to it. But I got a lot of questions about that one. I got a lot of questions about Pantoja and Asakura. Pantoja looking all but unbeatable. Let's see what we got here. One more time. Pantoja on a bit of a decision run. That tends to happen at flyweight, but then you get crazy finishes too, and it's like, is it really not an exciting division? It's a very exciting division. I think some people just didn't like Demetrius Johnson holding the belt for so long, and they ran out of contenders, so they're giving him fucking Chris Carriasso to get Kimura'd. Huge question mark on that fight. I'll tell you what, I'm kind of hoping that Asakura gives us a wild finish. I think Pantoja is coming into his own as a champion, for sure with the win over Steve Erceg, but Asakura has the skills to beat Pantoja. But there's other things that go into this. It's his first fight in the UFC, fighting a guy who, maybe he has the skills to beat Pantoja in a flash knockout, in a scrambly submission. Maybe he has the skills to take Pantoja all the way to the bell in a 5-round decision. But abstract things come into play that affect the level of skills that you can display on the fight night. And I wonder if being the main event, being in the UFC, fighting the champion, I wonder if that might cause him to stutter step a little bit metaphorically. We will see. I think I'm leaning Pantoja. But I don't know, man. Asakura might be him.